is the Global Digest think tank group. We are podcasting from different countries, different people, scientists, scholar, professor, diplomat, and businessmen, all kinds of people. We are sharing our experience and knowledge to all over the world. So first, why don't you introduce to our audience, where are you right now and what's your background, please?
Okay, so I'm Juan, and I studied political science and linguistics. I'm living in Switzerland because I'm starting a master in international relations, concretely in European studies. I'm interested in geopolitics, especially in the geopolitics of Europe, well, because I'm European. But I'm also really interested in the geopolitics of Asia, and especially Eastern Asia. Sorry.
So you've been to South Asia.
No, I'm really interested in geopolitics of East Asia. I've been to South Asia, but I haven't been to East Asia, not yet. I've been to India.
I see.
Kind of experience I had, well, I have worked with, just like 1 month ago, I was working in Lithuania. It's a country located, if someone doesn't know, it's in the Baltic countries. It's northeastern Europe. They are part of the European Union. So I was living in the capital of the country called Vilnius. Was working with refugees that came mainly from Belarus, that have a political problem right now, but also coming from Russia, and also coming from a lot of African countries. It's kind of, we could call it the second door to European refugees after the Mediterranean entries from Spain, where I'm from, Italy, and before Greece. Nowadays, not the case anymore. Now it's way more difficult to enter to Europe through Greece. So I was working there for 1 month on a project with Caritas, that is an European organization for human rights, and we were trying to help people in their political and asylum, the people that were trying to get a political asylum in the European Union, in this case Lithuania. So it was really difficult because the Lithuanian policies are really different to the ones in Spain or Italy, as we are more used to refugees because we have had a past where we have received these refugees, and Lithuania is not as used to it. So it's a completely different background, a completely different way of working. So it was really interesting to learn from them and to see the difficulties and chances that are happening in this area of Europe.
I know a lot of Ukrainian refugees and probably Belarus, but I'm surprised why many Russians are seeking for asylum, because they are aggressor country. Why the people they are seeking for asylum in other countries? Because usually those are attack or victim country usually seek refugee in our country. But in case of Russia, I mean, not small number. Even in Asia, many Russians came here and seeking for refugee. So how can you analyze? How's your opinion on that?
Well, I mean, there are way more Ukrainian refugees in general in Lithuania than Russian. However, they have some Russian refugees that come to Lithuania, not only to Lithuania, also to other Baltic countries such as Latvia or Estonia. Why it happens? Well, because it's one of the only borders between Russia and Europe, and also a lot of them come through Belarus. That is an ally state of the Russian regime. So they can go to Belarus really, really easily, and then they can just try to cross the border to Lithuania. Once they cross the border in European territory, and they can ask for asylum. Why that happens? Well, it doesn't happen super oftenly, but it happens. Happens basically because, as in any country, you have people that don't agree with the ideology or with the way the government is acting right now. Russian government is not known for the respect of human rights, and a lot of people living under really bad life conditions from their daily lives. So that's why trying to seek for a better lifestyle in the European Union is a basic movement and a normal way of acting for human beings to seek for a better future. That's why they have some Russian refugees in Lithuania, but also in other Baltic states.
It's in Russian population not satisfied with the Putin government, Putin leadership, and the current regime. They are violating their own people, a lot of human rights, and even economics is, and all things are collapsing in social life in Russia. So can you say the Russia people or majority of Russia population really disagree or not satisfied with the regime, Putin regime?
I have my own theories, but that they are not scientifically and socially, there hasn't been researches that we can rely on. But my personal opinion is that I think we have to consider that there is an important population in Russia that is against the regime. Yeah, of course. But the regime of Russia has a history of having strong centralized governments, where we all know Russia is a federation, but the power that comes from Moscow is a strong power, and that's the way Russia has always operated. There is no world in which Russia, right now, we cannot imagine the Russian Federation having a real democratic system, because it's really a hard challenge to make, taking into account the huge amount of differences between all of the Russian oblasts, not only for ethnical differences, cultural differences, language differences, even though the Russian is the lingua franca. We have it's another continent in a country. That's why having a democratic state will be difficult to carry, taking into account Russian history. However, especially in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, I think we have an increasing amount of people that is against the regime, but that they're silenced by this regime because it's not convenient for them to have this mass of people. But I'm sure there are, and these people are, this amount of people is going up and increasing just by the fact that the measures have been taken by Putin have been really unpopular in a lot of parts of Russia. Yeah, you could say. Yeah.
Saying most Russian people did not speak out, and they are quiet.
They don't speak out.
What the regime is doing and what the leader is doing, any wrong things. Maybe they are afraid they may get persecution or oppression if they speak out. So by the way, I don't know, Russia, or I mean at least Moscow or around that area is probably you may consider or you may not consider as Europe, but I mean they are very close to Europe. Historically, Russia never had a good full-fledged democracy, like liberal democracy. They are not yet liberal democracy.
They are not a liberal.
When was their best democracy? Or they ever had democracy, or they never had democracy?
Well, they've never.
I have no idea.
Russia, well, we could say there was a decade where Russia was kind of opening up during the 90s when the USSR collapsed. Russia got independent because the Soviet Union wasn't Russia. The Soviet Union was a union of different countries, made the Soviet Union. The main country was Russia. That's why they had the power. But once Russia got independent and transformed into the Russian Federation, there was a decade where we could think Russia was opening up, as other countries have done. It didn't happen in the end when Putin came to power and started gaining power, and the Russian regime forces started to close up again, probably out of fear of the US and the NATO. Owing to the fact that NATO the NATO only shared like a few kilometers of borders with Russia, and it was because of Norway. Norway and Russia shared a big amount of borders, and that was the only NATO's border between with Russia. Nowadays, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the 3 Baltic states joined the NATO as well. Now Finland just joined the NATO some days ago, and there were plans of Ukraine joining the NATO as well. That would mean that Russia would be completely surrounded by NATO forces, making it really difficult for them to defend in a war, because they will be having they would have NATO troops coming from everywhere, basically in their borders, in the western borders, where there are the main cities that are St. Petersburg, Moscow, and Ron, I think. So that's basically that's one of the theories, and one of probably the reasons why Russian regime didn't keep opening up like they were apparently doing during the 90s. The US approach probably wasn't the best here. I think we should have had bigger and stronger ties with the Russian regime when they were opening up to avoid this happening. But things happened in a different way, and now we're having a continuation, or probably the real Cold War that is just happening right now, and is represented by Ukraine and Russia.
So you will say after the end of Cold War, around 1990s, Russia has the best democracy compared to any other time, or because they open up and they are cooperating with a democracy country, or probably it may be pressure from NATO and other international society to become democracy. I feel maybe Russia not really a genuine feeling to have their own way, their own feeling to have a democracy. Because of pressure, they are probably
it's one of the reasons why.
But now it's collapsed again.
I mean, I wouldn't say Russia have ever. I think Russia has never had a completely liberal democracy. I think they have never had, but I think during the 90s they were on the path of getting that in the future. They were kind of going into that direction, but during the 2000s and nowadays, that's not the direction they're taking anymore. We kind of come back to the same paths that we were having during the Cold War. Russia doesn't want to lose the status of an independent and different country that confronts the US, because in the end, Russians see the US, the NATO, as an extension of the power of the United States of America. And as we say, that's one of the theories. We don't really know what's going. We really know what's the real reason why. We can make hypotheses, but we will, for the moment, we will never really know the whole reason for. I think there's more than one reason. Yeah.
I mean, like Saint Petersburg, I mean, you have same European culture, it's close to European. Usually, European culture has freedom of speech, and they have a lot of freedom, human rights activity. And why Russian people are not same with other European? Because other European, they have freedom of speech. Why not in Moscow and St. Petersburg? At least in Western Russia. Eastern Russia is close to Asia,
Yeah.
But why not in Western Asia? They don't have the same European culture like freedom of speech.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we couldn't say European culture. We couldn't define European culture as a one culture, because we have a lot of different cultures in Europe. We could say Western Europe has one of the features of Western Europe culture is the freedom of speech and freedom of trade, freedom of capitalism also, and is democracy. That's one of the features of Western Europe. Eastern Europe is another story. We have some countries like the Baltic countries that now have started a liberal democracy path, and they have institutions that assure the private property, and they have Lithuania and Estonia especially. They are creating a lot of IT enterprises, informing people even from India. A lot of Indian people go to study to Lithuania to get their diplomas in computer, in engineering, and over technologies related education and degrees. So we see some countries that are opening up in the East, but Ukraine wasn't a liberal democracy neither, and it's not a liberal democracy neither. Belarus is not a liberal democracy either. Turkey, I wouldn't call Turkey a liberal democracy either at all. I wouldn't say that most of the Balkanic countries are liberal democracies at all. I lived in North Macedonia for 3 months, and if they are on a good path, they are improving and they are getting some steps in order to join the European Union, and they are getting more and more standards done in order to join the European Union, as I said. However, they don't have the same liberal ideology as we could have in Western Europe. Also, owing to their past, I mean, Yugoslavia existed until the 1991. You have to remember the War of Yugoslavia. It was one of the biggest wars after, if not the biggest one after the Second World War. So, yeah. So, and in the end, the poverty index and their GDP per capita is way lower than the Western European one. That also matters. There are some political theories that say that the democracy comes with wealth. If you don't have wealth, it's hard to have democracy because you don't have educated people. You don't have people that know how to manage things, and it's really difficult to have a democracy when you don't have wealth well distributed in your country either. It's a complex matter. It's a complex matter we cannot define in one sentence. I think it's a really deep and historical, cultural, has a lot of...
So it's a kind of many things required, including wealth and also education and etc. Right?
Yeah.
Some are basic, like Europe is much smaller than India or China. It's not big. I surprised it will be very much different even between East and West Europe. But as you mentioned, it's very different with West Europe and East Europe. Yeah, political culture. And what about religious role? Russia also Orthodox Christian, many European also Christian.
So talking about religion, Russia is the majority of Russian people are Orthodox Christians, as you say. That's right. There are talks that the Orthodox, the leaders of the Orthodox Russian Church are they have really tight relations with the Russian political elite. So they say that they're one of the main supporters of the Russian regime. Well, religion, about religion, Europe is also we could say it's a really
declining Christian religion, I guess.
Yeah, of course, in all of Europe. However, in the Eastern Europe, Christianity has been growing during the last decades, just owing to the fact that during the communist times in Yugoslavia, in Czechoslovakia, in Romania, in Bulgaria, and in the Soviet Union and in Poland, religion was oppressed. Religious thinking was oppressed, and it wasn't legal to have a religious opinion. It was legal in some countries, but it was fight by the government. So there is like a counter reaction after the Soviet regime's fall. We have to remember that in Poland it was the Solidarność. That it was Solidarność was a syndicate for Catholic workers. That was the main actor that made the communist Polish regime to fall and to become a capitalist and westernized state. Religion has never been a good partner with communism, and that's the explanation why the counter reaction of the ex-communist countries has been to get more Christian people, and because in the end you cannot. Well, we know you cannot control people's beliefs. So we have an exception with Czech Republic. It's the country that has the most amount of athletes in Europe. However, I would say Europe is really homogeneous. About religion, we have a clear tendency of where the majority of people is Christian, either Catholic Christians, either Anglicists in UK, either in the Nordic countries, they have their own branch of Protestantism, Germany as well. Switzerland is also Protestant, depending on the canton. And you have the Orthodox Christians, but in the end, you see a really same path for everyone, where because of our history we are Christians. Even though you have some countries such as Albania, Kosovo, and Bosnia and Herzegovina that are mainly Muslim countries, especially Kosovo and Bosnia, and due to the recent huge wave of refugees from Syria and Muslim countries, the Muslim population has been rising in Europe during the last years. So we have a very complex puzzle of religions and non-religious people. The non-religious people is growing up as well with new generations. We are having a more deist and atheist new generations that don't believe in religions anymore. They are more scientific believers, we could say, and because we are more informed. But I wouldn't say that religion is playing an important role in the geopolitics of Europe right now. I wouldn't say so right now. Well, one thing is the data that the government gives to us, and another day is the real data. So the communist regime said that the number of atheist people was way bigger than probably it actually was. People wouldn't speak freely out of their religious beliefs. So we cannot really know. But I think religion plays an important role, of course, in liberal cultures. It's well, we don't see that many Muslim countries with a liberal democracy. Could be a reason why. Maybe yeah, maybe not. It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Yeah, because originally it came from Christian freedom, you know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Europeans spread to
Yeah.
Western Europe, America, to other countries that was spread. Most used to be strong Christian, Protestant, but now, as you mentioned, they are declined in religion.
Yeah.
But still, they still using the idea of freedom.
Yeah, of course.
For more economic issue, trading issue, I guess.
I'm not specialized in theology, but there are some people that say, there are some theories that say that Christianity provides more freedom and freely interpretation and provides more free trade than, for example, Muslim religion or Jewish religion as well.
How about European role? What's democratization in Burma? How to solve the military coup? They are not just military coup, you know, now it's civil war in the whole country, and a lot of innocent were killed, deliberately killed by military regime. Well, I know that the European Union is always seeking democracy, freedom, and human rights. That's not what's happening right now in Myanmar. We all know two things. Well, personally, what I know the most about Myanmar is that it's a beautiful country. Last Saturday, I had the Myanmar food for lunch. Really good food. I really like Myanmar food. I think it's a really beautiful country, and it has a complex society full of different ethnic groups. That brings like every area has a different language, different past, different history. You have the ethnic group of the Mian. I don't know the name, but I know that you have a really complex group. Exactly, it's a multi-ethnical state. People must think Myanmar is one ethnic state, the only one. No, Myanmar is a complex country with huge amount of different cultures. Well, right. And I know that the actual government has been persecuting the
Muslim Rohingyas during the last decades, and that they have been asking for political asylum in neighboring countries such as India, Bangladesh, or also Bhutan. I think, I don't know if I'm wrong, but I know Bangladesh for sure. Well, the situation in Myanmar is really complicated after the coup d'etat in 2020. Am I right? Was it 2020, right?
21.
2021. Okay, in 2021, and we all saw how the military forces enter to the governmental house, took over power. There was the European Union has always supported the leader that you all have is called
Aung San Suu Kyi.
Aung San Suu Kyi. Yeah, I know the European Union has supported her during the last years, even though there are some problems with her position regarding Muslim Rohingyas and their expulsion and the lack of respect of human rights for this ethnic group. However, I think the European Union is always against any coup d'etat, like any coup d'etat. It's for liberal democracy and freedom of choice of the Myanmarese people. I'm sorry, but for me, Myanmar has always been
Burmese people.
For me, it's always Birmania. I know Birmania is the country that I know.
You can't say either way.
So it's what I want personally. What I think the European Union policies goes in my line is we want a government that follows the Birmese people's desire. We don't want any political regime, can be left wing, right wing, that takes by force power and controls the mechanism of the state, taking away wealth and freedom from all the Burmese people. I think the Burmese people need to get finally a government and governmental institutions to be proud about and to start trading, because I think you are really from people, really valuable people that we are losing for these political and military forces that are super powerful in your country. They're abusing the power.
In my opinion, European Union is not effectively supporting democracy.
It's not effectively supporting, no? Of course, they will be supporting.
I want European Union should be very effective and support.
Okay.
My organization is Liberal Democracy.